Hello, everyone, and welcome to Turn Zero Loss, hosted by the Magic Engineers. I'm Eli. I'm joined today by David and Sherry, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a fun discussion, talking about Rule Zero at an EDH table, such as some of the things that need to be said, questions that need to be asked, and how to handle different situations on if people break the Rule Zero. First off, what is Rule Zero to you guys?
No universes beyond cards at my table.
Well, that's a rule. I'm saying like more of a like understanding of what it is, like kind of like
What is the
abstractly.
concept? Yeah, abstractly, what does the concept of Rule Zero mean to you?
So Rule Zero to me is basically the idea that everyone gets into a game of Commander or Modern or whatever kitchen table format they're going to play with today, and they all come to the same understanding with each other about what cards are good, what's not, what decks work, what doesn't, and generally like make sure everyone plays not necessarily at the same level, because sometimes it's fun to have decks that are like a notch or two above the table and everyone kind of work together to beat it. And more so that you get close enough to where you guys can ensure that the game is relatively even for most of the way through.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an example. I have a deck that is fairly rude to play against. It is my Winota deck, and I love it, and it's the closest thing I have to a EDH deck.
And we keep that deck away from matches whenever possible.
Yes, but I do want to play it every once in a while, and if there was but the part of the Rule Zero is, hey, I want to play this. Get your other asshole decks, or get your other like bring out the other big guns. Let's try to race. Um, that's understanding that it's like, even if it's also understanding what decks you have. Like, I don't want my tap tribal deck to face my Winota deck for very obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But it's understanding that you have to kind of create a better environment for everybody by understanding, hey, I may not get to play this deck, but I'll do another one and make them know that's like, hey, this deck is a little mean. Like my chainer deck, it's like, it's very, very grindy, and it's hard to play against. Or like my funnest deck, my Craj deck, it's like, yeah, it's going to combo, but you guys can interact with everything that I do. It's like making people understand. It's like not telling you exactly what the deck is going to do, but just letting them know it's like, hey, this is kind of where want to play at. Are you guys up to playing up to that, or do you need me to play down with a different deck?
So the basic gist I'm getting here is it's kind of like a verbal social contract that sometimes is had, sometimes isn't always a formal discussion, but can be had, and mostly should be had for if you're playing with people that you're not familiar with.
Exactly.
So I guess in that kind of realm of things, questions to ask during that whole Rule Zero discussion, because this happens at the beginning of the game before people have even decided what decks they're choosing. It's happened before people have even figured out who's going first, got a hand or anything like that. It's literally going to be happening. People are sitting down and you start having this discussion right away. How do you approach it?
So I always ask. So actually, I usually ask the player the question first thing. I usually ask, how long have you been playing the game? Usually, if it's someone I've never played with before. If it's someone I have played with before, I have a generally pretty good idea of that. But if it's someone brand new at a LGS, I ask how long have you been playing the game? And usually by that standard, I get it's a bit of an assumption, so I shouldn't really be doing this, but it's something I do anyways, and it usually works. But if they say something like, "Oh, I've been playing since original Ravnica or original Innistrad," then I have an idea that they're pretty enfranchised and they generally know what they're doing and they have a pretty decent understanding of how the game works. Um, if they say something like, "Oh, I actually just got this precon today," then I know A, that they're playing a precon and I can go with one of my weaker decks, and B, they haven't been playing very long, so they may need some assistance, which means I'm playing low power even if I'm not ripping out a precon. So first thing is to me is understanding the actual players at your table and knowing their experience level and their comfort level with the game.
And a lot of that has to be done like kind of relatively quickly. It's understanding Like even if, because some people come to their LGSs with one deck, even if they're enfranchised player, just because they don't want to carry around a toolbox like I do. And but it's like they come around, and then you're like, hey, is there anything like I need to know about this deck? Is there like is there unset cards in this deck? Is it's like, are you trying to win? Like, or are you like, is your sole goal to win? And do you want to play at a level to which I am trying to stop you from winning and winning myself? Or like, what are you trying to do and understanding that? Or are you just
So
trying to
on
learn
that-
the game? It's like, do I bring out my deck with a lot of weird mechanics because it'll teach them a lot, but not necessarily win? Sure. Am I going to bring out my deck that ties the game every time? No.
Yeah.
I
So
I
on that oh, go ahead.
I don't know, because like I feel like in every commander game you generally try to win unless your deck just isn't built to allow that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
you understand what I mean in terms of like, when you want to win, you're not like the, like,
Is your goal, I guess is basically what he's trying to say is, do you have a CDH deck? It's
Sure.
basically it. It's like, is your only goal right now is trying to win every single turn, like trying to go off and win somehow?
Mhm.
And is there an easy way to stop you, kind of thing? So in that same level discussion, how do you guys feel about giving number ratings for decks? Do people usually interpret their deck power level, quote unquote, pretty well? Or does everyone say that they're just a 7?
I've never had good success with anyone giving me a power level, to be perfectly honest. And that includes myself, because sometimes I just miss and other players miss, and that happens a lot.
I like to use the turns based in terms of, when are you trying to win? Like
Yeah.
how much time do I have to either stop you or to win myself? And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
for a CDH deck, they're trying to win about turn 3 or 4. They should basically have their combos and protections done by then at the absolute latest. Versus like, and the next tier lower, like higher power, it's like that's maybe like a 4 through 6 turn was your key turn. And it just kind of like works its way down to a dirtily deck that might win, but it's just more about just playing the game. And that gives
Yeah.
and that gives a good idea of where they're at.
I should also call out though that just because a deck takes longer to win does not mean it's less guaranteed to win.
Correct.
Like the Maze's End deck that I built is a very prime example of that, where the deck does not win very quickly, but it wins often.
Because it's a very hard deck to interact with, and that's established when you do that real sort of conversation with them. Like, because you have to be upfront in this kind of game. You're
Yeah.
like, this is the deck I'm playing. This is how it wants to win. You can't be like,
Yeah.
this is the deck I'm playing. I can't tell you how it wants to win, because otherwise you're going to interfere with it. The
Mhm.
social theme, there's 3 other players
Yeah.
at the table that need to figure it out too.
And with like new players I play that deck with, I'm very upfront about the fact that this is a Maze's End deck, which means that
I will have a lot of
it's
land.
not going to win fast. It's got a lot of land. It's not going to win fast, but it is going to win if you get past like turn 10. Then the deck will win.
Well, and I think like a turn 10, it's like that gives me a number, because I hate that deck.
Oh, I know you hate it, which is why I still have it.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, I hate that deck, but I know that it's more of an inevitability. And you also aren't going to be upset if I get some land destruction up in here.
Oh no, I celebrate it.
Yeah.
I celebrate it completely. If you have some way to stop my Mace's End stuff, good for you. Like there are other ways to win that deck, even though you don't see it.
Yeah, but it's like it's like giving a turn based on when you want to win, because like, even though that's more of an inevitability and that deck has a high win rate, if I'm actively trying to like get a deck that has a ton of interaction, I might do that. It's like I might grab a deck that will hopefully win by like turn 9. I'm not saying I'm trying to beat you by 1 turn, but it's like, okay, that'll give me the right power level, but it'll also not make it to where I'm like, oh, I have a turn 4 deck, where it's like that means you don't have any fun. That means I win quickly, which could mean I have fun, but it may not be fun for the other 2 people on that. It's understanding where everyone's at in that spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There could be a case where you sit down at a table and everyone wants to play decks that can win on turn 4. And that is the thing that could make it fun for everybody. Because if everyone's on the same page there and they know that everyone wants to win really fast, that's the game they're looking for.
It also helps because like games that are that short, you can usually shuffle up and go again.
Yeah.
One or two times. And, if somebody didn't fire off the first time, it's okay. We shovel up, play again, and we get a second chance, and they get a second chance to go off.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and this is why I'm evangelizing for CEDH, because it means you can fit more games. You don't have to spend 7 hours playing one game.
correct.
Yes. I guess another kind of conversation that I like to have too, whenever this whole thing is going down, is like talking about if there's like any combos in the deck, and if they exist, how robust are they? Is there backups for them? If there's backups, it's gonna be like, if you stop this combo once, it's basically a dead deck. But you need to have that kind of discussion. Be like, can the deck win without this combo? Otherwise, am I gonna just lose and just not have fun? Because it's a conversation to be had, and it'd be like, if you interfere with the combo, it's okay. You need to say that to people. Be like, whatever, this is okay. I can get through the game. It's no big deal. Keep playing. Fast mana is also a good topic too, because that usually indicates somewhere in the power level as well. But sometimes people have fast mana and their decks aren't super optimized. They just have the fast mana because they own it.
I feel like pretty much any commander deck worth their salt is going to have fast mana. The question is, what type of fast mana do you have? Like, having a Soul Ring is very different from having mana that
Or
Mana
Mana
Vault.
Vault.
Or Mana Vaults.
Grim
Or Mana
Vault.
Or anything that costs.
or the Moxen.
Yeah, any of the Mox stuff that can be played in Commander.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like knowing what of fast mana they have is very important to judge how enfranchised a deck is.
or
going
even
to be.
playing with a card that is banned in the format. For example, I don't believe that Prophet of Kruvik should be banned. And as everyone knows in this channel, I don't think a lot of things should be banned. But I don't assume that everyone else believes like I do.
Everyone.
So, and it's, if you feel like wanted to put this in this deck, let people know, hey, are you okay with this? If not, I have a card that slots in instead of it. And just knowing that and having that discussion, it's like, because a lot of people will probably say, okay, yeah. It's like, if I'm playing like a high powered deck and it's like, I want to put a Paradox engine that also is like, this is an artifacts deck. Absolutely not. I don't want to play against that, because that just makes.
So you're saying if I build a deck around Shahara's,
Yes,
you play
absolutely.
with
No. What? Stop.
that?
I'll face it with my stall the game deck, which means I tie the game every single time.
Oh, excellent. Sub game gets tied.
Oh gosh. I guess another conversation in here as well would be like talking about house rules. So a couple fun house rules that I've actually had recently is having the game start with the Monarch after somebody deals damage in combat. So it's basically like the Monarch's not in play until somebody swings and deals damage to another player. And the only reason why they do that is just to speed up the game, because you're drawing more cards and inevitably you're going to draw into what you need.
I like that role a lot because it incentivizes wacky
Well,
people.
and it makes it,
Yes.
it's a less feels bad in a way, because everyone feels bad about either making the first hit or whatever. And now that you've like taken the first, you've assumed some risk by inheriting the Monarch, but also you're accelerating the game and you're providing a benefit to it.
Yeah, because we haven't played Magic in a long time. I was actually going to try to implement this rule the next time we play.
I also like the rule of
there you go.
the fourth player in the turn order gets to scry the last one. Like, he gets to scry that before he draws, because because being the last player does affect you a lot. You are mostly on the disadvantage. Obviously, you don't want to do this at top power level table, but like on a where it doesn't matter too much. It's like, okay, it removes the feel bad of like, oh well, I'm going last. It means everyone's gonna have answers before I do my thing. So it evens it out a little.
Could also house rule planes chasing if you really want, because
If you want the game to go longer than 6 hours, then you can house with Planes Chase.
It either goes really fast with Planes Chase or it goes really, really long.
Yeah.
yes, there's no in between. You could house rule in that everyone, like, this is one that I'm taking from the player and community college, because this is actually like a really fun rule that I saw. Everyone gets to curate their perfect first hand.
I like that a lot. I remember watching
So-
Shuffle Up and Play. It was
So
that was a good time.
I'm a little about that because it kind of removes the mulliganing aspect of the game.
Yeah.
And I think
But the
that
point
is a skill that I think does need to be curried.
right, it's just that's in the Rule Zero discussion too. Is that when you're doing this, you're like, does everyone want this game to go really fast, or want to see how fast our decks can go if we have the perfect opening hand, and then just worry about the whatever the deck gives us after that? So everyone has to agree to it. If somebody disagrees, then you don't do it. That's just the way.
Or the official but non-official rules committee mulligan, where it's like the draw 7 cards again. I can't remember what it was. It was the one that Sheldon did. It was really weird.
I don't remember that.
You like basically bottom all 7 cards. You just draw another 7, or something. I can't remember how he did it. It was also on Shuffle Up and Play, but
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's. I don't think I don't think I'd accept that as a mulligan rule.
I would never do that.
Yeah, that's kind of intense.
Yeah. So I got another question for you guys, also about concerning card availability. How do you feel about unset cards in general at the table? Like,
I'm
what do you feel?
I'm thumbs up on most of them. There's a couple that are going to be no's because they like things like bigger Blacker Lotus, stuff like that.
Buckcast confetti.
Yeah, or things that are like I can't remember which one it was. It makes like infinity mana or something when you tap it.
Oh, VMAX?
Yeah, that's the one. And then anything that makes like half mana, I'm kind of.
yeah, I only allow that for very specific decks. Like our good friend Scott plays with the City of Ass.
Freddie Peanut?
Peanuts.
But that's like understanding. It's sort of like, or like rule zeroing cards like Croc's Other Thumb or the Sword of Dungeons and Dragons that functionally work within the game, but just aren't technically legal in the commander form.
That's fair. I'm actually mostly no with uncards. I'm kind of weird about it because like there's some I'm okay with, like things like Sword in D&D and Croc's Other Thumb are totally fine for me. And most uncommanders for that matter, I'm also totally okay with because they all of them are interesting design spaces that are never going to be explored in paper game or official Magic set. So I'm kind of okay with it. But like most of the time, some of them are just too crazy to play with. Although I will always allow cheaty face on the
How long has it been there? I don't know. Just
as long as I want it to be. Yeah, I might actually try to get a few copies of Cheat Face just to smuggle it into some games.
You're playing with 100
See how you guys
first
react.
card.
Amazing.
Or the
Yeah,
5
if you only
pieces of
catch
Exodia.
it.
That actually let's go into specifics
or-
about that specific home rule. The same Scott who has a Frankie Peanuts deck. That deck also can play or has 1 baseball card and the 5 pieces of Exodia.
Yep.
So the 5 pieces of Exodia effectively do nothing in the game of Magic because they can just be played for free because Yu-Gi-Oh is a crazy game that has no cost to it or balance. We still allow them
Or
to play.
balance.
They can attack, but they don't do anything. But if he actually gets the 5 pieces out, because effectively he has 5 dead draws that he can't do anything with, we've allowed him to basically wheel his hand to refill his hand.
Well, yeah, because like the text on Exodia is if you get all 5 pieces, you win the duel. But because Magic is measured in games and not duels, it functionally does nothing.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Game
use that
continues
one.
on.
Yeah. The duel is won, but the game continues.
Yes. So we've been pretty kind about stuff like that because it's fun to have somebody that has a silly deck, and obviously you don't want them playing that silly deck all the time. So you have to talk to them about it. Be like, hey, we've seen enough of this. Can you get like a serious deck? try to actually play with this.
And you being as the other player, you got to be kind of responded to like, yeah, I don't want to face your shoe lane deck, Eli. I like no matter what deck I place against, it still has 20-minute turns.
Damn, yeah, you're right.
Imagine how many times I've wanted to say to Will, hey, don't play the wall deck. Your turns literally take 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's kind of that leads into our next part here is responding to people not either understanding or breaking the social constructs that you've established at the beginning where you're trying to make sure everyone has fun. So if people are like kind of going against those rules or being obnoxious in some way and just generally breaking the social contract in general. How do you respond to that? Like what's your method of telling somebody, "Hey, this isn't how we play at this table."
Physical violence.
Turn Zero loss does not include any sort of physical violence against other players, except when they deserve it.
Which is always.
But I would say usually if it's like a one-time thing, like they like broke this rule, or like sometimes when you forget you have a certain card in this deck that they didn't want in, specifically didn't rule zeroed out, I'll give them like, hey, or if especially if they're honest about like let's say I drew that band card I had a while ago, it was like Yawgmoth's bargain. Like I would be yeah, if I am if I just, hey, I drew this card, I forgot to take it out. Can I separate this out, basically put it into exile or whatever? And can I draw a new card? It's like, and being upfront about that is usually good. As long as they're honest about like, hey, I forgot about this. It's like there's 100 cards in the deck, you're not going to memorize all of them. So as long as they're like,
right. But what if they're not honest though? What if they break it and don't like actually acknowledge that they broke it?
Then I don't want that person playing at my table.
The next table.
Yeah, it's really that simple. Like you are under no it's the same kind of social contract you have with D&D, where if a DM or a player is acting in poor faith, you're under no obligation to stay at that table and play.
Yeah. If somebody is being a way that makes you uncomfortable, do not stay in that situation. Like you should definitely move, go to a different table, leave the store if you have to, leave the area, just avoid it altogether. And if this is somebody that you are friends with, it's a little
have a frank discussion about it in that case. Like,
yeah,
it's not going to be pleasant, but when you're talking about like actual real life friends as opposed to a stranger at LGS, that's kind of dodgy. Then it needs to be had, and you're doing them and yourself more of a favor by just being upfront about it. And if they don't want to own up to it, then you shouldn't play Magic with them.
Yep.
Like
you can be friends. You can be friends with people and not play Magic with them.
Yeah, I do it all the time. So, I think the game, it's at the end of the day, it's just a game. They miss the rule zero thing. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes they just miss, or the power level isn't measured correctly, or somebody accidentally dekes out a massive combo to win the game and they weren't even aware of it. Then, in that situation is a little more rare, but generally speaking, like rule zero violations more often than not are accidents rather than they are malicious. If they are malicious, that's
usually you can tell. So like, for example, I'll bring up the time that I accidentally killed our friend Pippin, because I didn't realize that this comboed together. It was Delina, Wild Mage Sorcerer, and Port Razor. And I basically just kept, because he didn't have a blocker, I did basically infinite combat damage to him with infinite combat steps. It's like saying, it's like, hey, I got this deck because it didn't combo. I didn't realize this was in here. And as long as you're frank about that, it's like he understood. He's like, yeah, I couldn't have really done anything about it anyway. So, and a lot of that's just basic honesty. It's like, be honest with your other players.
Yeah. So that's our thoughts on Rule Zero. Let us know what you think. Give us some comments about that. You know, talk about any house rules you might have, anything that you found interesting about what we said. Tell us if you disagree. Tell us any sort of personal experiences you might have. You know, maybe we'll share them in another video at some point.
And tell us
You know,
about how that time you totally snuck out Cheaty Face and everyone laughed.
please, we'd love to hear that. Kind
Or
of
how the city
Yeah,
mass
okay.
actually
I need
killed you.
inspiration.
stuff.
With half
With
a
half
point
a point
of
of
damage.
damage. So give us a video like, follow us on Twitter at Lost Turn, and we'll see you in the next video.
Magic is
Be a
dead.
reminder that magic's dead.
Magic is dead.